Hello, and welcome to the Goodman podcast. Today, I have my good friend Mike Golden on, all the way from China, and we're excited to hear about his story and what he's been up to the last 20 years plus in business. So, Mike, welcome to the Goodman podcast show, and I'd love to hear about who is Mike Golden, what you've been up to.
Hey, Raj, it's great to be here. Yeah, we're old friends, so it's really special to be on your podcast. It's fantastic. So I've spent the last 21 years actually in China, most of the time doing marketing. So I own a company called Brand to Go China, and we help mostly multinational clients uh, reach Chinese consumers or Chinese B2B. Most of our business is around business to business, B2B, although we do have some large consumer customers such as Costco, the giant retail box store chain.
That's brilliant. I love it. And obviously, you said you work in marketing and B2B. Any specific areas in B2B marketing which you work more on, or is this more generic, for instance?
We cover a pretty wide, let's say, service scope. So we help a bit with insight research. So when companies come to China, they've got their messages kind of mangled or they don't work here. So we help them do some qualitative research and adjust their messaging. So this comes back to our communications core because when we started business, we are actually a PR agency. So we're like the modern iteration of that. Then we help them set up and manage their WeChat accounts and other social media. We might help them localize their website. And then the most important thing I would say that we do is help them do brand awareness or lead generation campaigns so that they can actually reach people in the market and make a substantial difference in the market.
Understood. Understood. And obviously, you mentioned you're a B2B company, but are your customers typically B2C customers? I mean, themselves, or are they also B2B companies as well?
So our customers are mostly B2B companies, large companies like Henkel, a giant German manufacturing, or Magna Steyr, who's an automotive first-tier supplier producer, and they're trying to reach their own customers who are B2B. So they might be trying to reach car manufacturers or people in various industries. So with B2B, you've got very long, let's say, sales cycles. It could be 6 months to a year to close a deal. And you've also got a lot of people involved in the sales decision. So it's not like consumer marketing where you're trying to get one person to go buy a candy bar or buy a shoe or get them inspired about that. It's more like this long thought out process where you're trying to reach people at different stages of the sales funnel or the marketing funnel. So I love it and our team loves it here. And I think we make a big impact with our clients and helping them reach their customers.
That's amazing. I mean, obviously, B2B is fascinating, is what I'm into as well. So, I respect and love it all I've done my entire life as well. But I'm assuming that doing B2B sales in US, Europe, other Western sort of mindset countries is very different from China. Can you tell me how do firstly, how did you perceive when you went into the Chinese market, and how do your clients perceive it today as they enter these different markets?
The China market is complicated on one side, but on the other side, they're people and they have the same kinds of needs and interests. And it's also marketing. I have a fundamental belief that marketing is marketing no matter where. You just might have a different channel, for example. And when we look at marketing, my own philosophy is that we have what I call these three C's, which is context, content, and channel. So if you look at the context, we're talking about, let's say, Chinese history in the last even 20 years, the massive growth of middle class, people suddenly getting rich. You've got language, the use of simplified Chinese here for characters and Mandarin as the main language. You have insights into how people behave and what their touch points are. And then you've got the content. So what type of content is going to appeal to those people or your target audience? So it might be different from what the West thinks is interesting. So you might take a B2B campaign that works all over Europe and in the US, but you bring it here and it falls flat. Maybe it's the language, maybe it's just the perception. It might be a small thing. For example, we see Chinese tend to like very busy, very fun and interesting kind of layout and design, where if you go to Finland, it's going to be mostly white space and very clean. So there's just cultural differences around that. And then the last part is probably the biggest difference, which is channel. And of course, all of the Western channels are blocked. You've got, there's no Google here, there's no Facebook. So when you adjust it for here, you have to look at WeChat, maybe Little Red Book, maybe Douyin, the local version of TikTok, and all these Weibo, all the channels are different. But that said, getting a handle on the channels isn't that difficult. I think the more important things are really about that context and the content, because the channel is just a channel. It's just a different way to reach people. So, people really get tied up with WeChat marketing, and it's so crazy and special and different, but it's still marketing. So, if you have a boring, flat message, even if you use WeChat, you're still going to be delivering a boring, flat message to your target consumer or your target audience. So those are the things we look at, those 3 Cs, and it helps us conceptualize ways and help explain to our clients how they can market more effectively.
Interesting, and I can only imagine these 3 Cs obviously vary, and I do agree the channel is just channel at the end of the day, the context and the content you produce. But I'm assuming that when companies kind of come to you and you do your inside research for them, or you look at like, okay, this is your business and this might be the opportunity, what's the first reaction they might have to your research and say, is it like a bit of a shock, or are they really more or less prepared because they have perhaps thought about this a little bit before?
I think some are, I wouldn't say shocked. A lot of it actually, if they have a local sales team already, they might see, okay, what the sales guy said is true, or to some degree true. Or they might think, okay, well, this campaign was worked globally. Okay, it doesn't work there. What can we do to make it work, or do we have to start from scratch? So I think most people, especially B2B marketers, they're pretty practical kind of people. So usually it's not shock, but it does take a shift of mindset, let's say, when you're in the China market, and to be open to, this is not how it works in the US or the West or in other places or Australia or something. So
Understood. I could only imagine when a noted company or a company from Europe which likes clean design comes into China, or maybe Japan as well. I think they're very similar design, but they come into the thing and they're asked to change the design to something which matches the local context as well. How is the reaction then? Are they open to it generally, or are the directors or the head of design saying no way, Jose? Or what's their general reaction?
yeah, with B2B multinationals, they don't want to change anything. Actually, this is the brand book, and this is how we're going to go. So there's a spectrum of localization, right? You can be on let's say the B2B side is more conservative version of localization, where maybe the focus is on the message and less about the graphics, because they want to stick to the global visual identity, which makes sense. If someone comes to your China website and then goes to your global website, it shouldn't be looking completely different. That said, if you're going down the spectrum towards consumer marketing and FMCG and McDonald's and stuff like that, they start to change it up. And I think the way we change it up and the way you can use that is to say, okay, we're going to run a campaign, and the campaign is going to be heavily localized and fun. Or maybe there's elements in your WeChat that are going to be more fun than you would allow. So the longer we see B2B clients in market, the more we see them adding little touches of localization. For example, adding an animation or a funny character into their WeChat that definitely doesn't exist in Germany in the hometown. So this is a great way to approach how you can kind of get the clients to start localizing a little bit. But that said, yeah, we don't want to go too far where people can't recognize the brand, right?
Understood. And I can only imagine that is a, obviously local partner like yourself can really help them understand the context of it and really be able to customize the messaging as well as the visuals and beyond the campaign itself to the local taste requirements, all that good stuff. One thing you mentioned, which was really interesting, was about WeChat, and you talked about the local version of TikTok. And when I look at B2B campaigns, which we do here, we don't even touch these channels. TikTok is like almost like a B2B and TikTok, do they come together? Most people will say, hey, no way. But every country is different, every economy is different, how it's perceived is different. How do you convince customers that the way to go is WeChat and the local TikTok version as well?
Well, TikTok's a very topical one to talk about right now, but you
That too.
know, I think with TikTok or Douyin, as it's locally called, it really depends on the client and what their target market is. So we'll always look at the target market, and part of that initial research is to say what are their touch points, and during which phase of that journey are they using what type of platform. So they might be doing on the awareness side, maybe they're just at home flipping through Douyin or TikTok. But then for business stuff, they start to look more at WeChat. And then when they're doing some research, they might go onto Baidu, the local version of Google, and do some research. So we want to look at what touch points during which part of the consumer or the target audience journey makes sense. So for most of our clients, I have to say like Douyin or TikTok is not really making sense quite yet, because you're talking video. Video requires a lot of resource to produce, especially B2B clients. They don't want to make a fun little video, just impromptu video and add a bunch of graphics. They want to do something a bit more polished. So it's also a change of mindset if they really want to go into this Douyin world, to have to start to think about different ways of recording and editing that are a little bit faster, a little bit more social media style. So we don't have a lot of customers going for that yet, but what we do have, we do quite a bit in food and beverage, B2B food and beverage. So let's say working for the UK that was targeting chefs and key opinion leaders or influencers, they're definitely on TikTok. So we used some TikTok or Douyin influencers and also influencers on Little Red Book to try to get those chefs involved, or those hospitality people. So that's one industry we're still doing the B2B work in a way, but they're more consumerish because they're doing fun stuff like cooking and things like that. So those type of campaigns work great for our types of clients.
That's amazing. It's interesting because when I compare that with what's happening in our campaigns, we're all about LinkedIn and we're all about inbound marketing, where SEO is the mainstay, as it were, the main play as we're looking at. Do you see that inbound marketing also is relevant to looking at Baidu, the local search engine? Do you see that also is relevant for the market in China, or is that something which is completely more sort of Western focus only?
It's a great question. And we do a lot of inbound marketing for ourselves, right? And we're producing a lot of content to try to attract people. But here in China on Baidu, it's not nearly as popular. It's not really the big thing it is in the West. And the reason is that SEO on Baidu, it's very, very difficult. You can't see the results very quickly. And then you realize that the whole front page is mostly PPC, pay-per-click advertising, or Baidu's own properties. So you'll have the Baidu version of Wikipedia, Baidu Map, Baidu products. You'll have all this Baidu stuff, and then paid search at the top and paid search at the bottom, with very little SEO room in between. So for our clients, we don't really recommend it. Of course, we want to produce content and have a long-term SEO strategy, but it's much easier in a way to do, let's say, a Baidu pay-per-click campaign and to have that running, as opposed to relying on SEO, which is not very reliable here, to be honest.
Understood. All right, let's rewind a little bit and see. You were in China 21 years back. Somehow you landed there. So tell us this Mike story. How did you land in China, and what made you start this awesome company?
Thanks for calling it that. I was a Japanese studies major, and with that, there wasn't much to do but go to Japan. So I went to Japan for about 4 years and had a fantastic time. Randomly got sucked into sales and marketing, working for a graphic design software company. And after about 4 years, I thought, well, maybe I'll head back. They sent me back to the US. I stayed in San Francisco. Then I did my MBA there and kind of near the end of my MBA, I wanted to go back to Asia, but not to Japan. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, come to China. Let's figure it out," in 2002. So came to China. We started a magazine. It failed in 6 months. Never start a magazine, people. Just don't. It's a bad idea, really. But because of the magazine, we were able to, after that, pivot it into the agency. And we started the agency in around 2004. And we had no clients. I didn't really know how to run an agency. And well, some of my staff might think that I still don't know how to run an agency, but that's a different topic. And we got one phone call as we were getting kicked out of our offices. We didn't really know what was happening. And it was a company called Hooters. And I think those in the US and many people know Hooters. It's the casual dining restaurant where the servers are generally pretty skimpily clad, popular with business people back in the day. And they were entering China and they said, "Look, we need a whole campaign. We need to do everything." And we said, "Yeah, sure, we can do that." They didn't ask for any kind of credentials or reference, which is amazing because we didn't have any. So we just went off and we did it. It was a big success. Some of the tactics were a little bit sketchy, I have to say. We were scouring the college campuses for potential servers to work at Hooters, which is not something you can really do today. And then we had a kind of pageant, like this large contest, and the winner got a scholarship, and they all became servers at Hooters. Congratulations! That was my first marketing campaign, so we've come a bit from there, I would say.
I'm guessing, obviously, I mean, as you mentioned, today the world is very different, but that's a great story. I love, thank you for going to your 5% and talking about the stuff which is really hard to talk about. The first campaign is always a challenging one. So thank you for sharing that. If you were to enter today in Chinese market, what would you do differently? Because obviously you said that it was very, it was very different back in the day, perhaps more open, they were more open to ideas and thoughts. What would you do differently today if you were to enter the market in China?
I think just doing a bit more research and really finding out, those key target markets and which ones to focus on a bit earlier would have been helpful. But 20 years ago, all the multinationals, everyone was entering China. There was so much excitement that we just had, we were very lucky. We had a lot of business just fall in our laps, which is why we, at the time we just did all kinds of industries because everyone was coming to us, do this and that, and there weren't that many, let's say, Western managed local Chinese agencies. You either had the big players or you had, let's say, very local companies that maybe the communication wasn't as smooth. It's very different now. You've got very good Chinese players. You've got every large agency is here. You're competing with everyone across every type of service. So it's definitely a major challenge these days. But we have great clients, and I really appreciate my clients and my team as well.
That's awesome. In this current environment, I'm going to be very careful how I word this because it is sensitive. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of, let's say, a little bit of friction potentially between the different economies, and we're seeing that the last few years the economy in China has also been a bit turbulent, which hopefully might recover, but we don't know what's going to happen. What's your take on this, Mike? What do you see is going to happen in the future, and how are you, as a company and yourself individually, sort of focusing and getting over that challenging period?
It's a great question, Raj. In terms of political friction, I don't think we really see it on a day-to-day basis with our clients, especially in B2B. You'll see it more in consumer, especially if people make a cultural mistake where they've printed something stupid on a t-shirt or they've made a commercial that offends people. And then the Chinese netizens go crazy around that. But in the B2B market, people move pretty carefully. So we don't see that as much. And this is an important market and an important part of the supply chain for the world and for the US. Um, blocking TikTok and all this is fine, but marking China as a political adversary Doesn't make my life easier, but it doesn't really affect the day-to-day operations because it's still the China US and China Europe connection is vital to the world economy. And the last few years, for sure, during COVID, and I was here during the lockdown. I was locked down for about 3 months in my apartment. Not so fun. We made do. And definitely the economy was down. Nothing happened, especially during the, a few years ago when they had the heavy lockdowns. But it's recovering. I think if the real estate recovers, then everyone will settle down a bit. Consumer spending's down. Um, but it's recovering. And I see just from this year a lot of people coming back in, a lot of interest, a lot of proposals and RFQ, people asking, sending tenders to us. So I feel the road to recovery is strong and I'm very hopeful for this year.
That's awesome. And is that recovery happening because of the stimulus and the inputs from the government locally, or is it happening because the sentiment in the West is that of obviously growth? Where would you see that's coming from?
I think it's mostly just positive sentiment is what's driving that, to be honest. Um, but not in every sector. I mean, everything to do with real estate, that type of investment, people are absolutely wary, and I think they're having all kinds of trouble to get any type of foreign investment into real estate here or real estate projects for sure. But other things where you've got a strong supply chain here and it's manufacturing for the world, it's not that easy to suddenly move to India or Vietnam. It's just not that easy, especially when you've got major capability here and capacity as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen all these many people talking about sort of the growth possibility in Vietnam and India and maybe even Thailand as well. But actually, yeah, there's a lot of infrastructure which goes into building these, and it takes a lot of time to decouple or actually create or kind of create these opportunities. So I can see that, yeah, for many years to come, perhaps China is going to be very relevant for this. As we navigate through this tricky times, and obviously the good news is that there's growth happening. As a leader, as the founder and CEO of Brandigo, how are you navigating this? How are you rallying up the troops, as it were, and making sure that they are performing and they are growing and they have the right mindset?
I mean, we just have to do our thing, right? So positive leadership, trying to inspire people to do the best job they can. The people we have are so phenomenal. Our team is just so amazing. If you look back over the last 20 years, I've never seen so much talent. And they're running the clients, they're running the campaigns, they're deep into the weeds on China marketing, but also with an understanding of global or Western marketing as well. So part of it's just growing as a leader and inspiring them and letting them do their thing in a way, and then putting pieces of the puzzle in place so that we can do the best job that we can, whether that's new processes and new project management software or doing stand-up meetings and all of that stuff. It's all just pieces of the puzzle, and it's continuous. It's never ending, as you know, as a fellow entrepreneur. We were always trying to improve the company and do things to make it work better.
Absolutely, and it gets harder when you have to do this even through like multiple cultural nuances as well. When teams are multi-city, multi-country, um, multi-continent, and that gets a bit tricky. And I believe there are two branches of Randigo, or are you one focused in China? Yeah, just to kind of clarify that as well for the audience, and it is an opportunity for more people to contact you from multiple locations, perhaps.
Sure. So in China, which is brandigochina.com, is the larger team and focused on marketing communications. And then in the US is brandigo.com. And they're more focused on insight and research and data research, actually. So they're more at the top of the funnel, doing an amazing job for their clients there. And we're a partner agency, so we'll work together for some cases where they might have a client that wants to come to China or vice versa.
Understood. So there are actually two. Yeah, there are two opportunities there as well. Top of the funnel and can go perhaps mid to bottom of the funnel with Brand Go China. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly, Raj.
Excellent. All right. So, I mean, Mike, obviously we met through EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and I'm always curious to understand how did or is EO adding as any value to your journey? I know it has added a lot to mine, and I always have to give back as well in a way. But how has EO impacted you as a person, family person, you personally, for example, in business?
Yeah, EO's been fantastic. I've been a member for maybe 5 or 6 years now here in Shanghai. And I think one of the approaches I love about EO is that we meet every month in the forum and really go deep into everything. So, and you mentioned top 5% earlier, or bottom 5%, really going to places where sometimes when we're entrepreneurs, we don't really want to show that we have any weakness or failure. But this is a group that you can open up, and it's not therapy, but it's important that you can access those parts which sometimes you just don't want to touch very much, and have some input around it, but no judgment. So it's been great for me. I think the business has become very professionalized, and part of that's because I've seen all these great entrepreneurs, seen what they do, trading tactics and strategies, but also mindsets as well, and seeing great people like yourself. And we're working together in a few groups to, you know, to I don't know, what are we doing? We're just making friends and
We're empowering fellow creative agency owners, I guess, as well, perhaps.
yeah, exactly. So there's these great opportunities like that we just made ourselves. And I think for myself, at least, if I wasn't in EO, I wouldn't do anything like that. But they gave us the platform to do it. And then the people are so open to engage in it. So now we have this group with 200 agency owners. It's amazing. And we're meeting once in a while, and we're trading tips and talking to each other from all around the world. And I think that's one of the greatest things about EO that's given me, at least.
Absolutely agree with you. I think that ability to share openly and be vulnerable with people who understand each other is it's phenomenal. So thank you, Mike, for being part of it, and thank you for being so giving in the form of mentioning the creative agency, but also beyond. You've done a great job. Thank you for being an awesome EO member and today for sharing on this podcast. Mike, as we end this podcast, where can people find you? Where can people find Running to China and yourself, and how can we engage you perhaps as well?
Thanks, Raj. It's been a pleasure. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's probably easiest. So Mike Golden or Mike Golden Brandigo. And you can check out our website, which is brandigochina.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch, and feel free to reach out, especially on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be pretty active, so it's great. So thanks, Raj. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to speak with you and for your time today. And yeah, tune into the Goodman podcast for more awesome tips like what Mike has given today. In Mike's example of that the ability to openly share and talk about challenges, but equally how they overcome them. So thank you, Mike, for the opportunity, and really good to have you at the Goodman podcast.
My pleasure.